And we're live. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the first episode of the Media Maestros Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ram, with my main man, Rey, and we're here to talk about media, movies, music, all the things that we love and that get us going. Rey's going to kick it off. Rey, tell us a little bit about yourself. How's it going, my guy?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be here. Happy to do this. I've been a big fan of movies for a long time. Really started viewing movies critically towards the end of high school because I took a film class, taking a couple film classes along the way, and that's just been a big passion of mine. Also, big lover of TV, different TV shows. Really love thrillers, particularly. That's kind of my bag. Music as well, mostly hip hop, but I really like R&B, dabble into the indie and alternative stuff as well. Try to maintain a well-rounded kind of balance in terms of what I absorb and consume. So yeah, I'm really excited to do this podcast and spread the passion that I have for all of those topics to anyone who wants to hear it.
That's really cool, man. Rey won't tell you this, but Rey is a phenomenal rapper himself. Rey actually
So is Ram.
inspired me to rap a little bit, just a little bit on the side. But like Rey, I love movies, love TV shows, especially. I'm also a big fan of thrillers. One thing that gets me going really are heist movies. I love a
Mm.
bank robbery, love LA, love ambulance. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Rey, tell us what's something that you've seen lately. Anything catch your eye?
Yeah, I decided to go and see Megan.
Megan.
Yeah.
Megan. Okay.
After all
Okay.
the memes, people talking about it, the dances,
Lots of
I
dances.
I finally decided to check it out. It
Okay.
was it was cool. I think that it is a movie that is pretty accessible. It's not too scary, but it still kind of has those jumps,
Hmm.
has those elements that kind of keep you on the edge of your seat. It's definitely a suspense film more than a
Okay.
horror film.
And what
Um,
exactly is the premise? It seems like a Chucky modernization. Am I wrong in that?
Very similar to Chucky. The idea is essentially you have this doll, this artificial intelligence AI doll
Hmm.
that is, it pairs with its host person.
Oh, wow.
So what it does is it grows an emotional attachment to that person and
Hmm.
makes sure that nothing in life can harm you. But as an AI, they may not understand what real harm is versus what isn't. So they might think of things as threats that aren't real threats. And
Okay.
obviously, a lot of danger and trouble comes from that. So that's
Okay.
pretty much what the premise of it is.
Okay. Okay. Now, a lot of people have found the movie to be a joke. Am I wrong in that, or what do you think?
Yeah, it definitely has comedic elements to it. I think I don't, I can't say 100% that it does both of them well.
Hmm.
I think that there are some issues. Personally, for me, I don't think that the comedy that they're trying to do really stands up. But I see where they were trying to go with it. The audience that in the theater that I went with, they were dying. I didn't understand. I was confused. So it obviously works. Like I said, it's an
Okay.
accessible movie. It's for the masses.
Okay.
But for me personally, it didn't completely work for me. I still would give it a positive review.
Okay.
If you're into that kind of movie, I would recommend checking it out. Um, but it's not. It's probably not going to be on my end of the year list or anything. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, I think that's fair. It's funny you mentioned that. One movie that did make my end of the year list was Everything Everywhere All at Once. And
Love that movie.
this movie is taken off. It was directed by the Daniels brothers
Mm,
with pieces of advice and producing from the Russo brothers. It's definitely a family film. For those of you that
mm,
haven't seen it, it's a film centered around a Chinese immigrant who has found herself kind of in a time lapse, so to speak, or time warp, in which she's sent to these different universes where she encounters different varieties of what her life could have been or what her life should have been.
Mm,
And the movie just does a brilliant job. I posted a tweet that highlighted that I've never had a film make me laugh, cry, think, wonder, get excited as this movie all in once. I came into this movie around the time of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse came out, and
hmm.
that's a movie that tries to take a spin on the multiverse and alternate universes. But I think this movie does it better than any I've ever seen or ever heard of conceptually. I was moved, I mean, to tears, full on tears in the theater.
Wow.
I was also laughing as hard as I've laughed during a movie. I definitely just recommend it all around praise.
Do you have any specific favorite aspects of the movie, you would say?
I think the movie, that's a great question. I think the movie does a great job of just getting so introspective in
Mm,
the fact that, what exactly is a hero and what
mm,
exactly is a villain? How do people become who they are? I think the movie does a great job in somewhat antagonizing the woman's daughter to be the main antagonist, this larger than life character who, in essence, at the end of the day, just had a broken heart, who didn't feel
mm,
seen. And it can seem a little corny or seem a little hokey, but I think that the movie does such a great job in displaying the duality of man, so to speak,
mm,
in how, for example, the main character's husband, he's a soft spoken, timid man who works super hard and does the best he can to provide for his family. But in one of her alternate timelines, she finds herself as this huge movie star, Oscar nominated, just totally box office hit. And she looks at her husband in this alternate reality and she looks down on him as a puny, kind of good for nothing type of guy,
mm,
a guy that can never really fight against the things he's fighting against. But the
mm,
husband gives this monologue that I think is about 2 minutes long. And I mean, I was moved to tears and hear him talk about this is how he fights against violence and against hatred and against all the evils of the world.
mm.
I was moved. I think that it's just brilliant. For everyone that hasn't seen it, I couldn't recommend it enough. Everything that you expect going into it, your mind is totally blown. I think it was great. You also to it, right? Right?
Yeah, I watched it when it came out in theaters. I had a great experience. I love the movie. It is easily one of my favorite movies of last year, if not my favorite. I think
I
that
agree.
it's gotten a lot of award nominations around the season. It's up for Best Picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it has a pretty good shot of getting that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for supporting actor, he's been kind of cleaning up in that
Mm-hmm.
category. Michelle Yeoh has a
Mm-hmm.
great performance. Even the two supporting actresses, Stephanie Shu
Mm-hmm.
and Jamie Lee Curtis,
Mm-hmm.
both getting nominations for their performances as well. It's really a stacked cast.
Outstanding.
Uh, the themes they handle incredibly well. And yeah, I would also echo the sentiments that you had. Everyone should check this one out.
Now, did you also see Doctor Strange kind of multiverse
I did
film as
Doctor
well?
Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I did.
Now, I saw the two in similar times, I think about a week apart.
Okay.
And my viewing of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness definitely colored how I saw and how I viewed everything everywhere all at once.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting how both films attempt to kind of show what the multiverse is like and what it would be like to explore different universes. But I think everything everywhere all at once took so much more of a risk in
Mm,
how they depicted these worlds and how you can just explore the idea of there being so much variety in universes beyond just, in this universe I wear a red shirt, in this universe I wear a blue shirt, in this
yeah.
universe I eat noodles, in this universe I eat shrimp. I think they just took some bold, and I don't want to spoil it, they took just some bold chances in exploring the themes that I think they knocked out of the park every time.
I definitely agree. I think another thing that Everything Everywhere All at Once does that I enjoy that also kind of reminds me of Parasite is that
Mm,
it it has like different genres and like at points
mm.
it's like a comedy, it has like action scenes, it has obviously the emotional dramatic scenes, and I like that they were able to tie all of those into the same movie, but each one is done well, which is kind of the critique that I had on Megan, where they're trying to add the comedy and the horror, and I don't think that it quite, melded that well. But Everything Everywhere All at Once was definitely able to do that, which I give it a lot more respect for.
That's a great point. That's a great point. That's a great point. So thinking about shows taking a risk, I
Mm,
feel like one of the biggest kind of releases in the Netflix catalog for this past year and this year would be their new show Kaleidoscope. Now you have seen that show, if I'm not mistaken.
Kaleidoscope, I have.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Not only have I seen it, I've seen it in different orders multiple times.
So you have seen it.
Yeah, I think I've seen it what three, no, at least two times, maybe almost a third time. And I switched up the episode orders.
You saw it in
So,
two random orders, or you did like one chronological, one randomized?
I saw it in chronological. That was the second time.
Okay.
The first time it was my own. I used like a algorithm of my own. I based it off of what the episodes were rated, kind of.
Ah, okay.
So I kind of did it where I took all the episode ratings and I took like a good one versus a less, and then a good and a less and a good and less, and I did
Huh.
it that way
That's very
so that
interesting.
I wouldn't have too many lesser rated episodes together, which might
Yeah.
make me like fall off, or not having too many good ones together, which would make me like disappointed,
Yeah.
you know. So I did that one
That's
that way
very clever.
first,
That's very clever.
and I think that that was a really great watch through. Chronological is cool. Um, it's kind of more of the basic way, I think,
Yeah.
but seeing it kind of in different chronological order was dope. What was your viewing experience like?
So I found myself somewhat intrigued by Netflix's assertion that you can watch this in any different order and
Yeah.
that it makes sense in the order that you watch it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've seen some people comment that you can do that with any TV show. I could just watch season 6 of Scandal and then watch season 3 and then watch season 4.
I was
So,
thinking that. Yeah.
so I'm not quite sure if I buy that, but I will say for the acting performances, for the story, at least in and of itself, I think that it works well. I'm a sucker for a heist film and a heist show. So
Hmm.
I was definitely engaged. I think that it was interesting enough to keep me wanting to watch more after every episode. But my viewing pattern, I think I watched, I started with After the Heist, and then
Oh
I
wait,
went,
we should tell the people kind of the premise, what it's about.
great point, great point.
You wanna
So I'll take it away. And thinking about this show's about a group of individuals and centered around one main character who is the mastermind of this heist. But
mm,
depending on where you're dropped in, you could be introduced to these characters through any variety of lenses. I was introduced to the characters as one large group that had just completed a heist in the middle of New York City. And I was exposed to see that there was one individual that had, and no spoiler, we don't want to have any spoilers, but one individual that had survived an injury. I guess we did give a spoiler if we told you that the heist was completed. But I guess that's the point of the show. You can watch it in your own order. But
that's true.
it's pretty much your typical TV heist. I think they did a good job of explaining some of the thoughts as to why this happened and how this happened.
Hmm.
But it was interesting. I'm curious, what were your main takeaways after watching it?
Yeah, I really like the idea of it. I do understand what you're saying. Say like you could do that with any show, but I think the difference here is intention. So they
Mm,
intentionally put clues into the episodes.
mm,
And there's like things that foreshadow, there are things that reference other things that you pick up on after watching that episode that it's referencing. And I think a regular show isn't intentionally trying to do that. And I think that's what kind of separates it for me. It does at points seem like a mystery, like
mm-hmm,
the questions of who's going to betray them,
mm-hmm,
who's the mole,
mm-hmm.
who's going to die,
Yeah.
and trying to like put all the pieces together as you watch it. is something that interested me with that. I thought Giancarlo Esposito is captivating as always in that
Always.
role. And I just, for nothing else, I just really had an enjoyable viewing experience. I enjoyed my time watching the show, whether it's technically as good as, some of the best shows I've seen, probably not, but I just had a lot of fun. And I think that I really value that a lot when it comes to something that I just end up picking up, on Netflix. So I did really like it.
That's a great point. Do you think that there was anything that the show could have done, I guess, to make it more of a mystery in the sense that I think the show presents itself as a thriller
Hmm.
of almost your classic who done it. But do you
Mm,
think that that was somewhat of a mischaracterization, or do you think that it's appropriate based upon your multiple viewings at this point?
I because they do have that like intro episode. I think it's the black episode
Hmm.
where they literally say that like they talk about this is a viewing experience where you can watch it in any order and who's the mole, who's the mole, and I think that does carry a lot of weight in what it is because you're expecting this
Yeah,
kind of extravagant or that's not the like intricate this
yeah,
intricate kind of web and you're trying to like figure it out and it
yeah.
isn't exactly like that, so I think that kind of hyped it up a little bit, but taking that away, I do think that there are good elements of that in the show. I don't know what I would have done differently because I think that it was executed pretty well, but are there any things that you specifically would change in terms of the plot, in terms of the marketing?
I think that's a great question. I think you answered it really well. And thinking about marketing in and of itself, it's on the marketers and it's on Netflix to present this show in whichever way will gain the most eyes.
That's
And I
true.
think they did a good job in presenting it as this intricate web of how did this happen and what happened. And for me, maybe my experience was jaded by the fact that I was dropped into the story as the main action had been completed.
Yeah.
And that took away a lot of the suspense. I actually think, and I feel like if the show was presented in chronological order, maybe I'm just lame, but I think that might have been more enjoyable in figuring out, can they do this? Will they complete the
Mm,
heist? Will they get caught? Who gets away? What happens?
mm,
Now, I did enjoy the fact that pieces were revealed along the way. For example, I watched the White episode last, and I'm not sure if that's the recommended viewing or if that's Netflix's algorithm, but I watched that episode last. And I think that episode intentionally weaves together multiple storylines. I think
mm,
it even had flashbacks from previous episodes, which would have
mm.
made no sense if you had watched that episode first.
Yeah.
So that was maybe one critique I might have as to the designated viewing or the viewing order. But all in all, I have to say I enjoyed my experience like you mentioned, and I would watch it again, maybe
Okay.
maybe on a different schedule. I actually watched my order based on my favorite colors.
Oh,
Started with
interesting.
blue, went to yellow, red, broke it
Interesting.
down.
Okay.
And that worked out well, but overall I enjoyed it.
Okay. Yeah. I think that again, just like Megan, if that's something that you're into, I would recommend it. Um, that might, unlike Megan though, that might end up being on like one of my top lists. I did really enjoy that, and it was the very beginning of the year, so I think it started off the year for me pretty strong.
We'll have to keep track. We'll definitely have to keep track. So
Absolutely.
in thinking about this this episode and this experience for all of you all, we'd like to introduce you all to a set of shows, a set of movies, and a set of musical projects or songs that we recommend for you all. So Ray, what's your musical recommendation for our audience this episode?
So my musical recommendation, it comes from a band. It's a, I would say, alternative R&B,
Hmm.
kind of a little experimental. It's called SAULT, SAULT.
Ah, okay. I think I'm familiar.
Yeah, and last year, 2022, they put out a collection of albums. But the one that I recently listened to is the one called 11. So
Okay.
previously they had albums of different numbers. I think there was a nine, there was a seven maybe, um,
Okay.
but this
And
one was 11.
are these randomized like Kaleidoscope?
I don't think so. I haven't looked. I haven't looked into how they come up with that kind of stuff. But I the thing is, it they all kind of have the same vibe,
Okay.
but they are different. And I think what I like about it a lot is it's a mix between really like soulful R&B sounds, but
Hmm.
it's that instrumentation, the way that they incorporate the drums, and like the more jazzier kind of instrumentation and mixing those two together is really dope. And Cleo Soul, who has provides the
Love Cleo.
vocals for a lot
Love
of these
Cleo.
tracks, I am really into the solo stuff she has. So
Hmm.
finding out that she was a part of this group,
Okay.
I definitely knew that it was going to be some vibes that I would enjoy, and I was not disappointed.
Okay.
11, really
Okay.
enjoyed that one.
Any standout songs that come to mind or of the group
See,
as a whole?
yeah, that's the thing is it all does kind of blend in together because I won't say it's conceptual, but it's just sonically um very a conscious kind of flow throughout the album. So there
Hmm.
aren't specific songs that attract me more than others. I mean, I do have songs that I like. Like I would probably throw out Fight for Love was a standout for me.
Okay.
Um it kind of reminded me of the Solange album that came out a few years ago. That one had more of an experimental kind of vibe. It was When I Get Home,
When I Get Home. Okay. Not a seat at the table.
not a seat at the table. The
Okay.
one after that, When I Get Home, I feel like it really reminded me of that, where like I said before, the different instrumentation that you wouldn't necessarily normally hear on a smooth R&B track, uh,
Hmm.
and it kind of you can kind of just lay back and it kind of takes you on a trip in a sense,
Okay.
kind of just drift away into the music, and yeah, I really dope listen.
That's powerful. That's powerful. You think about drifting away to the music and really just finding yourself taken along with the vibes. The song I wanted to recommend for everyone is Alone from Burna
Mm,
Boy. And I
mm,
had that exact experience. Yeah, I first encountered the song in the movie, the newest Black Panther film.
mm,
And I found myself just totally moved when that song came on. I think the directors paired it so well with the scene itself that it made it so much more just emotional and intimate.
mm.
But I think even taking it outside of that context, I know as soon as I left the theater, that was the first thing I did on my phone, found the song, added it to my library, played it the entire way home, and I was just moved. I've been a fan of Burna Boy since his big breakout, Yay, at least his big American breakout in 2019.
Likewise.
And his album after that, Twice as Tall, was one of my
Mm,
favorites of that year.
wow.
A lot of standout tracks on that one.
Okay.
I was less engaged with his most recent one, Love Damini, but
Mm,
I found that song alone from the and it's rare for me to find a song on a movie soundtrack to really hit and just tie in that well. But I loved it. I recommend everyone that hasn't heard it to check it out. Great song. You talk about vibes, you talk about feeling, you talk about emotion. I'm all the way in. I loved it.
so does this track have like emotionally charged lyrics, or is it more just the vibes that kind of gravitated you towards it?
I think that there are some lyrics that really stick out. It's I would do it a disservice by trying to sing it right now.
Okay.
But but I think it's more of the swell. For example, there's a great piece of the song where the chorus is, kind of repeated and accompanied by a choir. And it just adds so much more life and so much more gravity to the song
Mm,
as a whole. I'm a sucker for a choir. I'm a sucker for heist movies. I'm a sucker for a choir.
I
And
respect
that
it.
piece just is so fulfilling. And I think
Hmm.
the way that that's kind of sprinkled throughout the song, I
Hmm.
definitely think that it gives it a grand feel for a song that's only a few minutes long. So I
Okay.
highly, highly, highly recommend that song. Always recommend Burna Boy. Great artist and someone that I think doesn't get enough shine in the States as he deserves.
Do you listen to other artists of that genre and Afro beats and Caribbean music, or is Burna Boy kind of the focal artist
The
for
one
you?
that I think holds the highest candle from my perspective would be WizKid.
Okay.
WizKid was someone that I was first introduced to through Drake, through
Right.
Drake's introduction and Drake's kind of pairing with him on One Dance back in 2016. That was a while ago.
It
But
was.
but WizKid's Made in Lagos album was debatably my favorite album of that year. From top to bottom, I found myself a bit less um enamored with the deluxe edition. I'm thinking about Smash with Thames. And I think about Justin Bieber's kind of interpolation. I didn't really like the Justin Bieber essence, but I enjoyed it. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think?
I'm sorry. Oh man, let me calm down. Um,
That's all right. Take your time. Take your time.
nah, Essence was one of my favorite tracks of uh it come out last year, 2021.
2020, actually.
Really?
It
Okay.
blew up. It blew up 21.
I think 2021 is what I heard. I love that track. Yeah, I feel like for me, I do have a lot of different genres just in my library, but I wouldn't be able to just name the artist like that because I kind of just follow. Like if I hear it, I'm like, "Ooh, this sounds good," put it in
Mhm.
there. So yeah, there's definitely a bunch in there, but Burna Boy is definitely a name that stands out. He's probably one of the most popular artists of that genre in the US. So that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And of course, I think the kind of theme, the main track that got promoted the most from the new Black Panther film was the Rihanna kind of
Lift me
return.
up.
And I found Lift Me Up to be a bit, I don't want to say cheesy,
Mm,
but I found it to be almost like those films that are somewhat Oscar bait when they're released. You
mm,
know that they're trying to they're trying to evoke a certain emotion. I
right.
found that song to be less organic as Burna Boy's alone felt in the film. So I
Mm.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Highly recommend it. Could be song of the year when it's all said and done.
Wow. So you would give it that nomination over Lift Me Up if you were able to.
Undeniably.
Wow.
Undeniably. Undeniably.
I respect that.
Well, it's almost that time. And last segment we'd like to leave you all with is our blast from the past. So in this, we'd like to recommend one song, show, movie, project, album from at least 20 years in the past. For this first week, Ray, kick it off.
Yeah, so in thinking of Blast Pass, I decided to choose a movie that's from a long time ago, many decades ago, 1957.
Okay.
And that film is called 12 Angry Men. 12
12
Angry
Angry Men.
Men is one of the first older movies that I saw because, going through film classes and kind of going through IMDb's top 250 movies and things like that, there's obviously going to be a lot of older movies on there.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it really impacted me when I watched it. It's essentially about this kid who is on trial for murder,
Mm.
and you have these 12 jurors. And I think it is important to note that the kid is they don't specify what race he is, what ethnicity he is, but it's ambiguous. He's not white,
Mm-hmm.
but you have these old white men who are the 12 jurors, and they are in charge of deciding whether, giving their verdict for whether he's guilty or not. And it starts off, you have, all of them saying like, "Oh, of course he's guilty. Just look at him. Like, this is an open shut case." And but one by one, guilty, 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 guilty. But then there's this one person that, you know, doesn't feel like there is enough to just, you know, give that verdict out. And he says, "We need to talk about this more." And that
Mm,
kind of sparks the whole rest of the movie. It's
mm,
just these 12 men sitting in this room deliberating and having these conversations of like actually breaking down the case
mm-hmm,
and going through trying to eliminate their prejudices and biases and slowly ending up changing some of their minds and
mm,
opening them up to a new perspective, that just because this may be where you come from or what you view other people in the world, that you're dealing with someone's life, it at least takes, they deserve to have their your full attention and not just writing them off. And that's kind of what the film boils down to. And it really touched me. I think it had a really great ending. I'm not going to spoil it exactly what happens at the end, but it's an emotional film for sure.
that's powerful. That's powerful. I'd love to check that out. Any clue as to where we can find that on Netflix, maybe Amazon Prime?
Yeah, I actually do know where you can check this out. So
Okay.
if you have a MGM Plus subscription,
Okay.
then
MGM
you
Plus.
can check it out on Prime Video.
Okay.
But if you don't, look out for it. If it ends up going on your streaming service, maybe you want to go out and actually like buy it on Blu-ray or
Yeah.
Redbox or something like that. They probably won't have it on Redbox. Never mind. But yeah, I think everyone should see it. It's a classic, and it's a movie that's just really relevant. Relevant
Yeah.
now, relevant then, relevant all in between. It's universal themes all over that movie.
Well, I think that's great. Well, it looks like we're right at about time. So, for Media Maestros, I'm your co host, Ram, with my main man, Ray. We thank y'all for watching. Until next time.